I gave my friend a place to stay, but he treats me like I'm his personal servant. About a year ago, I, 29F, moved in with my mom, 60F, who lives in a very touristy destination. Several of my friends expressed interest in coming for a visit, none more than John, 40M. He immediately asked when he could come for a visit and continued to ask every time we spoke until I told him he could visit any time during this month. When he asked to stay for 12 days, I hesitated, but said yes because flights are expensive and that might have been the cheapest option, and he recently had a death in his family that hit him very hard, and I wanted to offer what I could to help him recover. The trouble started when he sent me his itinerary, and 12 days had somehow turned into 14. I didn't say anything because the tickets were already booked, and I didn't want him to feel unwelcome. When he arrived, the weather wasn't good, and he was a bit mopey, so I took him to some indoor attractions. He was worried about the weather because he wanted to see all the good stuff. However, he hadn't done any research and had no idea what the good stuff was. I told him that if he knew what he wanted to do, we could make some plans, and that he was more than welcome to use our neighbor's van, which they let us borrow when they are out of town. The next day I had a car problem, and my mom and I ended up spending most of the day getting it fixed. John came with us and was grumpy the whole day but didn't ask to be dropped off anywhere or to use the van. That night he said he felt he was wasting time, so I asked him to do some research and make a list of things he wanted to do. He did, and we've been able to accomplish some of those things. He keeps proclaiming, "I don't care what we do as long as we hit everything on my list." There's a problem though. I don't have a traditional job, but I have things I need to do and deadlines to meet. He is treating this as if we are on vacation together instead of me doing him a favor by showing him a few places and giving him a place to stay. I informed him that I would not be joining him for the remainder of the big activities on his list, and he seemed to take it okay. Yesterday, my mom drove John and me to another place on his list, but on the way home, we realized the van was not safe to drive and needed maintenance the next day. John's response was, "Will I have a car tomorrow?" My mom just said she didn't know, and when we discussed it in private later, we decided to tell him he should rent a car. I had a meeting I had to go to today, and told him that I would drop him off at the rental agency early in the morning on my way. He said okay, but didn't try making a reservation until this morning. As I was getting ready to go, he informed me that there were no rental cars available in the entire city and that he'd be staying with my mom all day. I've just finished my meeting but have a few other errands to do, and I am trying to figure out what to do with him when I get home. In addition to the above issues, these are some of the other things that are driving my mom and me crazy. He leaves his stuff everywhere and makes a mess, says he would help with the dishes but then disappears until someone else starts doing them, leaves the lights on after I told him multiple times not to, doesn't properly recycle stuff after being told multiple times, makes snarky comments about how we have so many rules when we bring up the lights or recycling, asks me to cook for him, complains about the lack of food, changes the temperature in the car while someone else is driving, putting on religious music in the car and insisting on finishing the song after I told him it makes me uncomfortable, saying that I invited him to stay several times, when actually he kept asking to stay. John and I have known each other for about 10 years. He sort of mentored me through some difficult periods in my life, and I value his friendship dearly. Kicking him out is not an option, but Mom and I are both stretched to our limits. Update 1. When I last posted, he was planning to go for an overnight trip to a city about 100 miles away. There were no rental cars available, so we let him use the van after we fixed it. I had suggested he get a hotel, however, they were all booked up. My mom suggested Airbnb, but he claimed not to know what it is, which I find hard to believe, but whatever. He ended up going on 3 separate day trips to this city. We were both pretty annoyed that he had no qualms about putting that many miles on our cars, but at the same time, it was worth it to get him out of the house. Today is his last day, but his flight is late tonight. This morning, he announced his intention to take my car to another place about 50 miles away. I expressed concern about him driving so far, and me having to take another long trip to take him to the airport, and he said, "So what, I'll gas up your car." I told him we needed to talk and asked him to come outside with me. As a few of you suggested, I told him that since he had said he appreciates my blunt feedback, I was going to give it to him right now. I told him that this was not intended to attack or berate him, but I needed to let him know how his behavior made my mom and me feel. I told him that it wasn't cool that he extended his trip by 2 days and just assumed I'd be available to take him around. I told him it was taking advantage to take those 3 super long trips in our car, and that perhaps if he'd planned in advance, he could have arranged for accommodations instead of expecting me to be his personal tour guide. I told him that every single other person who has stayed with us has offered to rent a car, and that my mom was offended when she told him we had to do maintenance on the van, and instead of offering to stay near our house or get an Uber, he only asked if he would have a car to drive. I told him that messing with the heater in the car without asking was very disrespectful. I told him that, despite the fact that he has made it a habit to leave lights on and not recycle, he needs to break that habit because it is unacceptable to not follow the rules when someone opens their home to you. I also told him that the thing that made me feel the most taken advantage of was when he belittled me for having so many rules. I went on to tell him that the reason for me telling him this was not only for my own sanity but to make him aware of a problem that was going to prevent him from ever forming a meaningful and healthy relationship. I told him that if I didn't care about him, I would have kicked him out long ago and never talked to him again, but that I decided it was worth it to tell him because I thought he would reflect on what I was telling him and figure out a way to change his behavior. He listened and didn't make excuses. He apologized and said he would think about what I had told him. He apologized to my mom after we went back inside, and they had a little chat about how certain things he says rub people the wrong way. My mom advised him to consider how things he says might be interpreted. He called an Uber and left several hours before the flight. He offered to leave money for his use of the cars, but we told him not to. After we left, we found it in his room anyway. Overall, I have learned to set boundaries when I have someone come and stay.